What happens when the most defiant political figure in America suddenly looks exhausted, isolated, and visibly strained? Tonight, new signs are raising serious questions about Donald Trump's health, both physical and mental, as allies fall silent and the pressure closes in. For months, Donald Trump has projected an image of strength, defiance, and absolute control. But recent public appearances, court schedules, campaign stops, and behind-the-scenes reports paint a very different picture. One of mounting stress, visible fatigue, and an increasingly isolated figure struggling under unprecedented legal and political pressure. Observers across the political spectrum are now asking the same question. Is Trump's health taking a turn for the worse, and is he facing it largely alone? In recent weeks, Trump has appeared noticeably more strained during speeches and interviews. His delivery has slowed, his tone has grown more irritable, and moments of confusion and repetition have drawn attention even from longtime supporters. While aging alone can explain some changes, the sheer scale of stress Trump is under is unlike anything faced by a modern American political figure. Multiple criminal trials, civil penalties, mounting financial losses, and nonstop media scrutiny have created a pressure cooker that few individuals, regardless of resilience, could endure without consequences. Legal experts point out that Trump is spending long days in courtrooms, followed by late-night strategy meetings and early-morning campaign messaging. This grueling schedule would be exhausting for anyone, but for a man in his late 70s, the toll can be especially severe. Reports from journalists present in court have described Trump appearing drowsy, slumped in his chair, and disengaged at key moments. These are not the images of the energetic strongman persona he has carefully cultivated for years. What makes this moment especially striking is how alone Trump appears to be. Many former allies who once stood shoulder to shoulder with him are now conspicuously absent. High-profile Republican figures have distanced themselves, donors have grown cautious, and even trusted media defenders have softened their tone. The inner circle that once surrounded Trump with constant reinforcement has thinned dramatically, leaving him increasingly dependent on a shrinking group of loyalists. Psychologists and political analysts note that isolation can dramatically worsen stress, anxiety, and overall health, especially for individuals accustomed to constant affirmation and control. Trump has long relied on rallies, applause, and dominance over the news cycle as sources of energy, but as legal realities replace political theater, that familiar feedback loop is breaking down. Courtrooms offer no cheering crowds, no adoring supporters, and no control over the narrative. Instead, they impose silence, restraint, and consequences. Behind closed doors, sources familiar with Trump's daily routine suggest that his frustration levels are at an all-time high. He reportedly lashes out at aides, cycles through moments of anger and withdrawal, and obsessively monitors media coverage. Such behavior, experts warn, is often associated with extreme stress and emotional exhaustion. Over time, these conditions can weaken the immune system, disrupt sleep patterns, and intensify physical health risks. Trump's public messaging has also shifted in subtle but telling ways. Where he once projected confidence about his future, he now frequently frames himself as a victim, betrayed, hunted, and abandoned. This rhetoric, while politically useful to energize a base, may also reflect a deeper psychological strain. Repeatedly portraying oneself as besieged can reinforce feelings of paranoia, resentment, and despair, especially when real-world events continue to validate those fears. Another red flag is Trump's increasingly erratic campaign schedule. Events are often canceled or shortened at the last minute, sometimes without clear explanation. Speeches that do occur are more repetitive, leaning heavily on familiar grievances rather than new policy ideas. Veteran campaign strategists say this can be a sign of burnout, when a candidate lacks the mental or physical stamina to sustain the pace required for a national race. Meanwhile, Trump's legal battles show no sign of slowing. Each new ruling, fine, or filing adds another layer of pressure. Financial penalties threaten his business empire, while criminal charges threaten his freedom and legacy. For a man whose identity is deeply tied to winning and dominance, the psychological impact of sustained loss cannot be overstated. Loss, especially when public and relentless, can be devastating to mental well-being. Family dynamics also appear strained. While Trump's family has occasionally appeared by his side, their presence is inconsistent, and public displays of support feel carefully managed. The absence of a strong, visible family shield, something many politicians rely on during crises, further reinforces the image of a man navigating this storm largely on his own. Medical professionals emphasize that stress at this level is not just an emotional issue, it is a health issue. Chronic stress is linked to cardiovascular problems, cognitive decline, weakened immunity, and increased risk of serious illness. Even without a specific diagnosis, the warning signs, fatigue, irritability, isolation, and declining performance, are enough to raise legitimate concerns. Trump's defenders insist he is strong, resilient, and fully capable of handling the pressure. They argue that appearances can be misleading, and that Trump has survived crises before. But critics counter that this moment is fundamentally different. Never before has Trump faced criminal accountability on this scale, nor has he been so constrained by institutions he cannot dominate or escape. Perhaps the most telling aspect of this moment is Trump's silence on his own well-being. A man who once boasted endlessly about his strength and vitality now avoids the topic altogether. There are no reassurances, no lighthearted jokes about stamina, no attempts to project health beyond vague bravado. In politics, silence often speaks louder than words. As the months ahead promise even more legal battles, political confrontations, and personal setbacks, the question is no longer whether Trump can win another election, but whether he can endure the physical and psychological toll of the fight itself. Power has always been Trump's shield, but as that shield weakens, the human cost becomes harder to hide. In the end, this is not just a story about Donald Trump's political future. It is a story about what prolonged stress, isolation, and relentless pressure can do to any individual, especially one who has built an identity around never appearing weak. Whether supporters acknowledge it or not, the signs are there, and they are becoming harder to ignore.